A team of scientists and paleontologists was digging deep underground in a coal mine in the Cerrejón region of Colombia, which actually formed from a rainforest that existed 60 million years ago. So they were searching for the remains of ancient plants and animals there. This place was part of a mysterious past, hidden from the world and concealed within the layers of the earth. During the excavation, experts found something strange deep within the rocks, and when the dirt was brushed away, it turned out to be nothing other than a bone. Someone said it was a crocodile bone, while others called it a turtle bone, and some even thought it was an ancient tree trunk. But this very bone later took the scientific world on a journey to a time when the largest snake ever known, called the Titanoboa, roamed the earth. This wasn't just any ordinary snake because it was 10 times heavier than today's green anaconda and longer than a city bus. It was so massive that if it tried to slither on land, it would be crushed under its own weight. So where exactly did it move? And how did a single, ordinary bone transport experts back into the history of the Amazon to a time when the landscape was completely different? What was the real reason behind Titanoboa's massive size, and how did it hunt, and what finally brought an end to its reign in the Amazon rainforest? The discovery of Titanoboa wasn't a sudden event, but a process that began in 1994, when a local geologist named Henry Garcia noticed a strange object in the Cerrejón mine that looked like a piece of a tree branch. At the time, no one paid much attention to it, and it was placed in a special box until about a decade later, in 2002, when another geologist named Fabiani Herrera found a similar fossil in the same area. Their main goal was to research Paleocene flora, to understand what the world's first tropical rainforests looked like. The real turning point in this story came in 2007, when these fossils were sent to the Florida Museum of Natural History, where they realized it wasn't a tree branch, nor did its structure match the spine of a crocodile. But when they compared its shape to the vertebrae of modern anacondas and pythons, they were absolutely stunned, because this bone was 3 times larger and thicker than an anaconda's bone. At that moment, experts immediately identified it as a snake vertebra, and you can see for yourself that on the right side is the bone found in the coal mine, and on the left is the vertebra of an anaconda. In the world of science, size matters a lot, and Titanoboa shattered every previous record. Experts use mathematical models to estimate the snake's length based on this vertebra because they observed that in snakes, the size of a vertebra is directly proportional to their total length. This means the size of the spine can accurately predict how long the entire snake will be. And through these calculations, the vertebra revealed a snake measuring between 42 and 50 feet long. That is roughly twice the size of a modern anaconda. And Titanoboa wasn't just long, but it was as thick as a heavy-set man's waist, and its massive body weighed as much as a sedan. It weighed around 2,600 pounds, making it 10 times heavier than an anaconda, and a weight of over 1.3 tons is simply impossible for any land-dwelling snake today. This discovery sent shockwaves around the world because this was truly the king of snakes that was later named Titanoboa. The real question wasn't just how big it was, but the astonishing part was figuring out why it grew to be so massive and why today's snakes aren't this large. The answer lies in the climate, because snakes are ectothermic, meaning they're cold-blooded animals. Humans can generate internal heat to stay warm, but snakes rely entirely on the temperature of their environment. And a simple rule of biology is that the hotter the environment, the faster a cold-blooded animal's metabolism will run. A fast metabolism means more energy and the ability to digest more food, along with rapid growth and the capacity to sustain a massive body. The discovery of Titanoboa didn't just introduce experts to a new snake, but it also acted as a thermometer for the climate of that era. Titanoboa's gigantic body was living proof that 60 million years ago, the temperature in Colombia was far higher than it is today. During that period, the Earth's climate was so hot that the temperature stayed above 90 degrees Fahrenheit day and night all year round. And if the average temperature was that high, the humidity must have been absolutely extreme. It was so thick that it might have felt difficult to breathe in this dense enclosed jungle that never cooled down. This constant intense heat gave Titanoboa the energy it needed to grow so incredibly large, and today's Amazon rainforest, which feels quite hot and humid to us, would probably be way too cold for Titanoboa. If it were alive today, it likely wouldn't survive in this current rainforest, because the massive amount of energy required to move its heavy body could only be drawn from that extreme prehistoric heat. Naturally, keeping such a massive body alive meant it had to eat a massive amount of food, which raises the question of how Titanoboa actually hunted. Did it slither rapidly across the ground to chase down its prey like the giant snakes in Hollywood movies? Not at all, because with a body that large and heavy, hunting on land was out of the question, and even just crawling on land was incredibly difficult. Gravity worked against its weight, because the longer a snake is, the more of its body presses flat against the ground, which meant a huge amount of friction. Research revealed that Titanoboa was actually very sluggish on land, which is why it was an aquatic predator and not a terrestrial one. It behaved very much like a modern-day alligator or crocodile, and spent most of its time submerged in swampy waters because the water supported its heavy body. This allowed it to float and use buoyancy to feel virtually weightless and move with agility while hiding in ambush deep within the murky swamps. Only its eyes and nostrils remained visible above the water's surface, as it was an ambush predator, meaning it struck by surprise from a concealed position instead of chasing its prey. It waited patiently in hiding for long periods and could lie motionless in the water for hours or maybe even days. Its body camouflaged so perfectly with the murky water that prey wouldn't even sense its presence, and the moment an animal came to the water's edge to drink, Titanoboa would strike with the speed of lightning. Scientists have used biomechanical models to estimate that when Titanoboa constricted its prey, it exerted a pressure of over 400 pounds per square inch. And to put that crushing force into perspective, imagine the weight of 2 African elephants stacked on your chest. Titanoboa didn't wait for its prey to suffocate because that massive pressure instantly shattered bones and immediately stopped blood circulation, so the prey was finished in the blink of an eye. But what exactly did it eat to sustain this giant body, because it needed massive meals? And in this tropical jungle 60 million years ago, Titanoboa's favorite meals were giant turtles and massive ancient crocodiles. Yes, back then, there were species of turtles that measured over 8 feet across, which is a turtle the size of a pool table. And Titanoboa would crush these turtles in its jaws to easily crack through their tough shells. Its teeth weren't designed for catching slippery fish, but were built to crush thick bones, and similarly, the crocodiles that terrify jungle waters today would have just been another meal for Titanoboa back then. All these facts prove that Titanoboa was truly the apex predator of its era and the undisputed king of the Amazon. Now, you might be wondering how it managed to swallow such massive turtles if it was only as thick as a healthy human's waist. I should tell you that the hardest part of discovering ancient snakes is finding their skull, because a snake's skull is made of very fragile bones that break down quickly after death. For the first few years after discovering Titanoboa, experts only had its vertebrae, which made it difficult to accurately picture its face or its hunting methods until 2011, when a student intern named George Moreno Bernal unearthed a Titanoboa skull in the Cerrejón mine. This was a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that proved that just like an anaconda, its jaw could dislocate, allowing it to easily swallow prey 3 times larger than its own head. Its brain was quite small, but its senses were incredibly sharp, and it had pit organs capable of sensing the body heat of other animals, allowing it to hunt flawlessly in complete darkness. Remember, the water wasn't just a hunting ground for Titanoboa, but it was absolutely vital for its survival, because if a body that huge stayed entirely on dry land, it would literally be crushed by its own weight, causing its internal organs to rupture. The water provided the necessary support to lighten that immense load, which means Titanoboa's life existed in perfect balance, where the heat gave it strength and the water kept its weight manageable, making it a marvel of nature, perfectly adapted to its environment. But this brings up a crucial question, because if it was so perfectly adapted and incredibly powerful with no natural predators, then how did this king of the jungle go extinct, and why don't we see them today? The answer is quite simple, but tragic, because the world changed, but Titanoboa couldn't change with it. And after the Paleocene epoch, the Earth's climate slowly started to cool down. For us humans, a drop of a few degrees is no big deal, but for a cold-blooded giant snake, it was a death sentence, because as you learned earlier, Titanoboa's metabolism depended entirely on environmental heat. When the cooling began, its metabolism slowed down dramatically, meaning digesting food took much longer and its strength began to fade, so it was no longer agile and couldn't ambush prey as easily. But it wasn't just the temperature drop, because the entire ecosystem shifted, and the vast swampy areas of the rainforest that were perfect for Titanoboa slowly started to dry up, leaving fewer habitats. Alongside all this, mammal populations exploded across the globe, and the prey that once belonged exclusively to Titanoboa was now being hunted by competing animals, which hammered the final nail into its coffin. In the blink of an eye, the world's largest snake was left with nothing, as there were no swamps and no extreme heat and no prey, so a drop of just a few degrees turned the largest snake in history into nothing more than a ghost of the past. We hope you all thoroughly like and share this Stokit AI video, and thank you so much for your lovely comments, so we'll see you in the next amazing video.